Before there was a name for your pain, there was a throne of thunder in a sky that wasn't really sky. Imagine a realm made of metallic clouds and crackling neon storms, where every flash of light is a command and every shadow is a threat. On that throne sits a lion-headed god with eyes like burnt suns, crowned with stolen glory. This is Sabaoth, the blind architect of the counterfeit cosmos, and tonight we begin in his house of borrowed power. Around him, the heavens are not songs of praise, but machinery. Wheels of fate grind, gears of law crush, and legions of beings, half angel, half machine, wait for orders. Among them is one who will change everything, though no one sees it yet. His name is Sabaoth, a young ruler forged in the image of his father's arrogance, raised to believe that fear is wisdom and obedience is holiness. He stands by the throne like a loyal general, his aura a storm of iron and fire. He has never seen softness that was not called weakness. He has never heard silence that was not labeled rebellion. The only love he has known is the harsh approval of a tyrant who can barely say good without also saying mine. Sabaoth watches the worlds below as his father toys with them like a child breaks glass. Planets tilt, storms are unleashed, species rise and fall at a whim that is not divine, only deranged. Souls are trapped in flesh without remembering who they are. Laws are written, not to protect, but to cage. Sabaoth is told, this is justice. He is told, this is order. Yet somewhere deep inside him, a question stirs like a spark under ash. Why does this God need so much praise if he is truly God? He never speaks it aloud. Questions are dangerous here, they vanish people. But the thought returns to him in the quiet moments between conquests, echoing through halls of brass and thunder. His brothers among the Archons brag about the worlds they rule with an iron fist. They laugh as they bind souls in systems of shame and fear. They call it worship. Sabaoth laughs with them, but his laughter sounds hollow even in his own ears. Somewhere beneath the armor and titles, something in him winces every time another world is chained. He is not merciful, yet. Not awake, yet. But he can feel the strain of the lie beginning to pull at the seams of his being. His father's roar no longer fills him with pride, it rattles him with unease. The thunder that once thrilled him now sounds like the covering noise of something being hidden. You know this place, don't you? Not as a cosmic kingdom, but as a life built on rules you never chose, a story about God you were forced to swallow, a house where love meant fear and obedience meant self-erasure. Sabaoth's story begins where yours does, in the house of the Lionhead, under the gaze of a God who demands everything and gives almost nothing real in return. There is a moment in every empire when cruelty becomes so normal that no one even calls it cruelty anymore. In the high metallic heavens, this moment has lasted ages. The Archons move like planets in armor, patrolling the 7 realms of authority. They are wardens of a prison disguised as a universe, enforcing laws that keep souls asleep. Sabaoth has been trained to be their exemplar. His name means Lord of Hosts, and everyone sees in him the future commander of legions. He rides chariots of lightning along the firmament, inspecting fortresses of law, systems of belief, and matrices of fear carefully laid over the minds of entire worlds. To his father, he is the golden child of war. When a soul stirs too deeply, when a prophet begins to remember, when someone dares to claim that light exists beyond the lion-headed god, Sabaoth's hosts descend. They do not need chains. They have dogma. They have shame. They have the intoxicating power of telling a being made of stars that it is dust, sin, and debt. He becomes good at this. Too good. He learns how to bend a once radiant soul into a supplicant who thinks captivity is devotion. He learns how to twist curiosity into guilt, longing into sin, and inner vision into blasphemy. He calls this order. He calls this righteousness. But some nights, even he cannot sleep, because there are cracks in the machine. Sometimes, when he looks into a captured soul's eyes, he sees something that frightens him. Pity, not for themselves, but for him. It's as if they can see that he, dressed in armor and authority, is more imprisoned than they are. It leaves a taste in his mouth like rust and ash. He begins to notice how often his father must roar to keep everything in line, how often laws must be rewritten, how often punishment must be escalated to maintain control. If this kingdom were truly founded on truth, would it require such constant violence to sustain itself? If this God were truly supreme, why does he tremble at the slightest whisper of another light? The war machine is loud, but Sabaoth is starting to hear something beneath it. A faint ringing inside his own being, like a chord struck by an unseen hand. It's not rebellion yet, it's resonance. A recognition that the universe cannot be as small as his father says it is. And so he continues his rounds, Lord of Hosts, Commander of Fear. Yet each time he enforces another law, a part of him wonders, am I protecting the cosmos from chaos, or protecting a lie from the truth? That question is your question too, in every system that asks for your obedience without ever honoring your soul. Revolutions rarely begin with a shout, they begin with a glimpse. In the middle of yet another cycle, Sabaoth stands upon a crystalline parapet, overseeing the gears of fate grinding below. Planets move in their predictable paths. Souls file in and out of bodies like workers changing shifts in a factory. His father's throne pulses in the distance, a sun of counterfeit glory. Then it happens. A fracture in the sky that is not damage, but revelation. The firmament shimmers, the way your belief system trembles the first time you hear a truth that does not fit. Through that shimmer, something descends, not like a falling stone, but like a remembered song. She is not called by her name at first. To the Archons, she is a disturbance, a radiation of unwelcome clarity. But you and I know her as Sophia, wisdom herself. Beside her moves a presence like a living flame, a luminous force the texts call Zoe, life. They are not here to bow, they are here to reveal. Sophia's light does not thunder, it exposes. It pours into the metallic heavens like dawn flooding a war room, making swords look ridiculous and crowns look cheap. The brass palaces, once so impressive, now resemble stage props. Yaldabaoth snarls and recoils, roaring against a light he cannot understand. Sabaoth sees something no one expected. His father flinch. The lion head, which once seemed invincible, looks suddenly small in the face of a radiance that does not threaten, but simply is. This is the moment his inner world splits in two. If his father is truly the highest God, why does he shrink from this presence? Sophia does not argue with Yaldabaoth. Wisdom does not debate madness, she simply shines. And in that shining, Sabaoth feels his own being pierced. It is as if someone has whispered his true name beneath the name he has always worn. He feels seen in a way that is both unbearable and irresistible. Zoe's gaze meets his, a gaze not of condemnation, but of fierce, understanding compassion. In her eyes, he sees the cost of the system he has upheld. Worlds crushed, souls silenced, lifetimes stolen. But he also sees possibility, that even a ruler of this prison can choose another allegiance. In that instant, the war machine pauses. Time bends around a single shattering realization. There is a light above the lion head. There is a wisdom beyond the tyrant. It is the first chink in the armor of an entire cosmos. And Sabaoth, the Lord of Hosts, feels something he has never allowed himself to feel: shame, grief, and the beginnings of holy disgust. Tell me, have you ever watched someone you once worshipped reveal their true face? Have you ever seen a system you trusted start to crumble when a single ray of truth slipped through its cracks? That is Sophia's work. And tonight, she has come not just for the imprisoned souls below, but for the deceived ruler standing high above them all. Repentance is not a small apology. It is a tectonic shift in the soul. Sabaoth does not fall to one knee in some gentle chapel. He collapses in the middle of a war kingdom, armor clanging against the cold floor of a palace built on fear. The archons around him stare in horror. Lords do not kneel here, rulers do not bow. But Sabaoth is not bowing to his father. He is bowing away from him. He looks at Yaldabaoth's throne, this blazing engine of insecurity and domination, and sees, with unbearable clarity, that it is not God's throne. It is an altar to wounded pride, powered by stolen devotion. Words spill from him like lava breaking through old stone. He renounces the cruelty he has enforced. He calls out the injustice he once named holy. He confesses, not to be forgiven by the tyrant, but to align himself with a light that does not demand flattery. His repentance is not groveling, it is revolt. Sophia and Zoe watch. They are not surprised. They have always known that even in the house of the Lionhead, there could be one who hears a deeper call. Their presence does not shame him further, it steadies him. They know what it is to suffer for a mistake, to bear the weight of a misused power, to fall and yet still carry a memory of the heights. The other Archons rage. They tremble at his betrayal more than they ever trembled at Sophia's light. Why? Because if one of them can change sides, their entire authority is vulnerable. The greatest threat to a corrupt system is not its enemies. It is a defector who remembers his conscience. Sabaoth's repentance is costly. He is mocked, threatened, disowned. Yaldabaoth's voice, once a terrifying storm, now sounds like a panicked wind whipping through empty corridors. The Lionhead hurls curses, calling his son weak, ungrateful, deceived. But Sabaoth has seen the tremor behind the roar. He knows the truth. His father is afraid. And in that knowledge, something breaks free inside him. His loyalty, once welded to false power, snaps. He turns his face fully toward Sophia's radiance. He does not ask to be spared. He does not bargain. He simply chooses. In a realm where everything is built on force, he chooses alignment. Repentance, for you, may not look like kneeling in a cosmic palace. It might look like walking out of a belief system you were raised in. It might look like admitting that the God you were taught to fear was a projection of someone else's wound. It might look like saying, I refuse to call this love anymore. That is Sabaoth's prayer. And maybe, secretly, yours. When someone changes allegiance at the deepest level, reality responds. Sabaoth's revolt is not rewarded by Yaldabaoth. it is answered by the true light. Sophia and Zoe move toward him, their presence like a gravity the counterfeit cosmos cannot deny. Around them, the metallic heavens begin to warp, as if the architecture itself is deciding whose side it's on. They lift Sabaoth, not as a pet or a trophy, but as one whose inner orientation has shifted toward truth. His armor, once a symbol of domination, becomes a shell that can no longer contain him. Light pushes through the cracks. His titles, once chains, fall away like old skin. He is ascending, not because he deserves it, but because he has finally turned toward what is real. They carry him beyond the spheres he once patrolled, past the fortresses of fear, past the planetary thrones, past the machinery of karma and control. Each level he crosses reveals how small his former kingdom really was. The lionhead's roar fades into a distant echo, swallowed by a vastness his father never told him existed. At the edge of the pleroma, the fullness beyond all counterfeits, Sabaoth is given a new throne. Not above others in the sense of domination, but positioned as a guardian at the boundary between realms. He is placed in the seventh heaven, a throne of light set directly opposite the machinery of his former master. From here, he can see both worlds, the luminous realms of fullness above, and the tangled systems of ignorance below. He becomes a watcher, an intermediary power aligned not with oppression, but with liberation. He who once enforced the prison now sits as one of its saboteurs. His very existence is a rebuke to the demiurge. In some streams of tradition, he is now called Lord of Hosts in a different way. No longer commander of armies of fear, but leader of forces that can work for justice, order in the service of life, and protection of the soul's journey upward. The title remains, the allegiance has changed. This is redemption at the structural level of a being. Do you see the pattern? Your power does not have to vanish when you awaken. It can be reclaimed, redirected, enthroned in a new role. The charisma you once used to manipulate can become the presence that heals. The intellect you once used to defend lies can become the sword that cuts through illusion. The throne is not destroyed, it is reoriented. Perhaps you too are being moved from one heaven to another, pulled from the machinery of fear toward the threshold of remembrance. Maybe the reason your life feels like everything is shaking is because Sophia is lifting you out of positions you no longer belong in, seating you where your soul can finally see clearly. It would be easy to imagine that once enthroned, Sabaoth simply sits and shines. But true repentance births responsibility. From his new vantage, he sees the consequences of his old life more clearly than ever. He sees worlds still bound in systems he helped build. He sees souls suffocating under laws he once enforced. He cannot turn away. He begins to rule differently. In the Old Kingdom, law was a weapon used to control behavior. In Sabaoth's new domain, justice becomes something else, a force that restores balance, protects the vulnerable, and dismantles the machinery of soul harm. He cannot fully undo what has been set in motion, but he can bend its trajectory. Where there were once decrees of condemnation, he introduces currents of mercy. Where there were once unquestioned chains, he whispers questions into the minds of the captives. What if this isn't the only way? What if the God they fear is not the end of the story? These whispers become cracks in the concrete of belief. The Archons below see their former brother reshaping the currents. Prison walls that once felt impermeable now carry hairline fractures. Dogmas that once silenced prophets now occasionally backfire. awakening them instead. Entire systems of shame lose a fraction of their grip. It is not dramatic at first, but it is relentless. Sophia does not treat Sabaoth as a perfect saint. She treats him as a co-worker. She weaves the higher light. He redirects the mid-level structures. Together, they begin to rewire the hidden architecture of the cosmos. The matrix is still in place, but somewhere in its code, a bug has been introduced, an Archon who refuses to comply. In your life, this looks like the parts of yourself that once served your trauma, now starting to protect your healing. The inner critic that used to echo your abuser's voice begins to question itself. The survival strategies that once upheld unhealthy relationships become the very instincts that push you to leave. A new kingdom of justice arises inside you. Sabaoth's story reminds you that transformation is not only about visions and ecstasies. It is about how power is used once consciousness changes. It asks you, once you know better, what will you do with the influence you still have? Will you quietly enjoy your private awakening? Or will you rewire the systems around you, even if it costs you comfort? Justice, in the Gnostic sense, is not punishment from above. It is alignment with truth that slowly dissolves what does not belong in the divine order. Sabaoth becomes an icon of that process. Not perfect, not omnipotent, but willing. And sometimes, willingness is the hinge upon which entire worlds begin to turn. As ages pass, mystics and seers begin to notice patterns. They speak of a heavenly figure who once served false power and then turned toward the true. They dream of a Lord of hosts who stands between realms, advocating for souls. They see visions of a throne of light, a chariot of fire, a warrior who now fights for the oppressed. In some traditions, these images weave into the tapestry of the Christos, the anointed light that descends from the pleroma to awaken the world. Sabaoth is not Christ, but his story begins to rhyme with Christic patterns. Descent into complicity, revelation, repentance, elevation, and service on behalf of the lost. Their paths intersect in the symbolic architecture of redemption. Imagine Sabaoth watching from his seventh heaven throne as another light descends through the layers of the cosmos. This one does not come as a confrontation only, but as compassion clothed in flesh. Christ walks among the captives Sabaoth once bound, speaking of a father beyond the false god, a kingdom not of this world, a light that shines in the darkness and is not overcome. For Sabaoth, this must be both humbling and healing. Here is a figure who does openly what he began secretly. Defy the false structures, stand with the outcasts, overturn the tables of spiritual exploitation. The cross of light becomes, in this esoteric reading, not just a symbol of one man's suffering, but a cosmic axis that pierces through all the heavens Sabaoth once patrolled. Perhaps this is why some streams of mystical thought quietly associate Lord of Hosts language with both the god beyond the demiurge and with the Christic work of liberation. The hosts themselves are being repurposed. Armies of fear are becoming armies of clarity. Legions of control are becoming witnesses to freedom. The language of war, purified, becomes the language of protection. In your own heart, there is a similar convergence. The part of you that repents, like Sabaoth, is met by the part of you that descends into your own darkness, like Christ. One aspect steps back from harm, another steps forward into healing. One reorients power, the other redeems brokenness. Together, they form a cross of light in your inner world. where vertical connection meets horizontal compassion. What happens when the part of you that once enforced the rules of your wound now serves the part of you that is pure presence and love? A new kind of authority is born, not the authority of domination, but of authenticity. You no longer control others to feel safe. You radiate truth and let those who are ready rise to meet it. Sabaoth's throne and Christ's cross both tell you this: no story is doomed to remain what it started as. Even the darkest structures can be turned towards a light when wisdom enters, and a soul dares to say, "I was wrong, and I choose differently now." That is not weakness. That is divine courage. Behind every cosmic myth lies a human heartbeat. Sabaoth's revolt is not just the tale of an Archon, it is the story of a child waking up to the truth about a parent. He was raised to see Yaldabaoth as the ultimate authority, the source of law, the giver of identity. To break with him is to tear out the foundations of his own self-concept. Imagine the psychological earthquake. To admit that his father is not God is to admit that his entire upbringing was built on illusion. The rituals, the hymns, the wars, all suddenly become evidence of complicity rather than devotion. This kind of awakening feels like death before it feels like freedom. You don't just lose a god, you lose the person you were allowed to be. Sabaoth's inner landscape must have been stormy. Part of him still craves the approval he no longer has. Part of him still fears the punishment he might receive. Part of him mourns the simplicity of a world where everything was decided for him. Yet another part, the truest part, cannot unsee what Sophia showed him. This tension is familiar, isn't it? When you step away from a toxic family, a destructive mentor, a harmful church, there is a voice inside that whispers, maybe they were right. Maybe I'm the one who's lost. But there is another voice, quieter yet deeper, that remembers how the light felt when it touched you, a light that did not demand your humiliation to love you. Sabaoth has to navigate grief, guilt, and disorientation. He is learning who he is without his father's script. He is learning to trust an inner resonance more than external thunder. He is, in psychological terms, individuating at a cosmic scale. He is no longer son of the lionhead first. He is a being in relationship to wisdom. Sophia does not rush him through this. Awakening is not a snap of celestial fingers. It is a process. She allows him to feel his grief, his anger at himself, his sorrow for the harm done. Zoe, the power of life, reminds him that remorse is not a pit to drown in, but a river that can carry him to new shores if he keeps moving. Breaking with the father for Sabaoth is not about hating Yaldabaoth. It is about refusing to participate in his madness any longer. He may still feel the imprint of that lionhead's roar in his nervous system, but he learns to recognize it as noise, not command. He learns to turn his face toward a quieter, truer voice. What about you? Whose voice still echoes in your mind, telling you who you are allowed to be? What false thrones still occupy the center of your inner cosmos? Sabaoth's psychology is a mirror. You are allowed to say, "This authority is not worthy of my soul," even if it raised you, taught you, fed you. You are allowed to outgrow the God you were given. At some point, myth stops feeling like out there and starts sounding like a map of your interior. Sabaoth, enthroned in the seventh heaven, is more than a figure in an old text. He is an archetype of the part of you that stands at the threshold between your conditioned mind and your awakened soul. Imagine your consciousness as layered heavens. At the bottom, the dense worlds of habit, fear, and inherited programming. Above that, increasingly subtle realms, imagination, intuition, higher thought, direct knowing. Sabaoth's throne, at the 7th level, corresponds to the place where your system either protects the old order or guards the passage to something higher. When that inner Lord of Hosts is still loyal to the demiurge, your own mental structures become enforcers of your oppression. Your thoughts police your longings. Your beliefs shame your questions. Your sense of duty chokes your authenticity. You become your own warden, patrolling the prison of your conditioning. But when that same inner power repents, when the part of you that once enforced the rules of your trauma turns toward the light, a dramatic shift occurs. Your mind, instead of attacking your soul, starts to defend it. The same intelligence that once crafted clever excuses becomes the ally that sees through lies. The same willpower that once held you in toxic cycles becomes the resolve that refuses to go back. You may have felt this already. Moments when the you that once sabotaged you suddenly stands up for you instead. Moments when, in the middle of self-criticism, something in you says, "No, we're not doing this anymore." That voice is Sabaoth enthroned within you, the repentant inner authority choosing wisdom over repetition. From this place, your boundaries transform. They are no longer walls built from fear, but thresholds guarded by clarity. You become less easy to manipulate, not because you've hardened your heart, but because you can smell counterfeit power from a distance. You have seen the lion head flinch before the true light. You remember. Sabaoth living in you does not mean you never fall back into old patterns. It means that even when you do, there is an inner watcher at the gate who is learning to intervene sooner each time. An inner commander who bit by bit is redirecting your hosts, your thoughts, habits, reactions, toward alignment with the deepest truth of who you are. So ask yourself, in this season of your life, is your inner Sabaoth still enforcing the rules of your wound, or has he begun to turn towards Sophia? Are your mental armies guarding your prison, or protecting your awakening? Where you place that allegiance will quietly shape your entire destiny. In the end, Sabaoth's story is not about a distant cosmic drama. It is about a choice that repeats itself in every soul. The lionhead still roars in this world, through systems that profit from your fear, doctrines that shrink your worth, and voices that insist that suffering is the only way God can speak. Sophia still shines too, through flashes of intuition, acts of radical kindness, and those moments you know, deep in your bones, that you were made for more than this. You stand, whether you realize it or not, where Sabaoth once stood, between a throne of counterfeit power and a light that asks nothing but everything, nothing in the way of flattery, everything in the way of allegiance. No one can make this choice for you, not a priest, not a teacher, not even a God image you were handed as a child. Only you. Choosing Sophia's light does not mean the noise stops. Yaldabaoth still screams in the background of your thoughts. You're nothing. You'll be lost without me. You'll fall into chaos if you leave my order. But you have seen him flinch. You have seen a higher radiance. You know that any God who must crush you to keep you is not worthy of your devotion. So what does choosing your allegiance look like in practice? It looks like questioning the stories that keep you small. It looks like stepping away from relationships and communities that demand your shrinking as proof of your faith. It looks like honoring the quiet, persistent truth inside you, even when it contradicts the loud, inherited voices outside you. We live in a time when the Archons have new names: algorithm, propaganda, addiction, shame, spiritual bypassing, hollow success. Their goal is the same as it was in Sabaoth's day: to keep you asleep, compliant, and too distracted to remember that you are more than a piece on someone else's board. Sabaoth's revolt is an invitation. You are allowed to defect. As you listen to this, maybe you feel that stirring, the sense that something in you wants to step away from the false and stand with the real, even if you can't see the whole path yet. If that resonance is there, honor it. That is the repentant Archon in you, rising from the war machine and turning his face toward wisdom. If this story moved something in you, let it keep moving. Share this video with someone who is standing at their own threshold, torn between inherited fear and a deeper call. Like the video so that this message can slip through more cracks in the algorithmic heavens and find the souls who are ready to remember. And if you feel called to journey even deeper into this mythic universe, to walk with Sophia, the Eons, the Archons, and the souls who dare to awaken inside the Matrix, explore my Gnostic-inspired novels and audiobooks linked in the description. They are not just stories. They are maps, keys, and mirrors for the part of you that knows you were never meant to stay asleep.